This video is sponsored by Hunter Engineering. Visit hunter.com for more information.
From the Aishan Broadcast Studio, it's What's Treading, brought to you by Hunter Engineering.
Hello and welcome to What's Treading. My name is David, and on today's episode, we are speaking with Michael Mathis. He is the president of Atturo Tires. Let's get to the interview. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on What's Treading, and today we are talking about CUV and SUV tires. And, you know, of course, this is a huge topic in the industry. This is not news, or I hope it's not news to anybody. We know that 11 of the top 20 best-selling vehicles last year in 2024 were CUVs and SUVs. And so, of course, the tire industry has responded in kind, and there are all kinds of tires available for these vehicles out there in the aftermarket. So my question to you is, how do tire dealers take advantage of the vast selection of tires available for these vehicles, and how do they make sure that they're not getting lost in this ocean?
Well, thank you very much for having me. We love talking about this particular market segment. It's one where Atturo has been focused for really our entire history. Our very first tire was for SUVs and targeted toward that category. So when you're thinking about this category, it's huge. We're covering everything from a Ford Explorer, Chevy Tahoe, Tesla Model Y, and then into the kind of smaller crossovers, the CRV, the RAV4, some of the best-selling vehicles in the market. And the important thing for this segment, almost more so than many others for the dealer, is to know their customer and how they're using their vehicle. So that's back to the basics of walk out to the parking lot, take a look at the vehicle, talk to the consumer about what their daily use is, and then what are their other hobbies and activities. The vehicle might give you some clues. They might have a trailer hitch. They might have stickers on there, about whatever their hobbies might be, mountain biking, hunting, fishing, camping, whatever those other things might be that they're doing. And that's going to give you that indication of what direction you should go with selecting the right replacement tire for the consumer. Mm-hmm. And so with this segment having broadened with so many different vehicles and option packages on the vehicles, you can think about a Ford Explorer ST, which is a high performance type SUV. And that's somebody that you can take their basic original equipment all season tire, and you've got an enthusiast type vehicle owner, move them over to a UHP tire that's going to enhance the handling and performance of that vehicle. Mm-hmm. On the other side, you could have a Subaru Forester owner, and that's somebody that potentially is more of a light off-roading, camping, hiking type of a consumer who might be open to looking at an all-terrain. And so you've got those kind of two extremes that you could go to. And then, of course, you've got your down the middle standard replacement type, all-season touring HT type of a consumer that's probably going to cover the vast majority. Mm-hmm. But identifying those other opportunities, can lead to an enhanced profit margin on a higher value tire in the UHP or all-terrain category. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're going to get a consumer who's going to walk out of your shop a lot more satisfied with the tire they got, because it's going to enhance the way they use their vehicle.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense to me. Are you seeing a lot of drivers coming in? I mentioned the huge ocean of tires available in this segment. Are you seeing drivers coming in typically knowing what they want in this segment, or is the ocean of availability so vast that they, might be a little confused and more often are looking to that tire dealer for their advice?
There's no one easy answer to that. I do believe that more and more consumers have an idea, especially if they're looking to replace to a different type of tire, they already have an idea that they're interested in that when they land at that dealer's doorstep. So they might present to that dealer and already say, I'm looking for an all-terrain tire, or I'm looking for more of a performance tire. they can call out a lot of those different features that they're after. And again, that's just the dealer being in tune with what that consumer is searching for and understanding what products they have at their disposal, in their own, product screen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, CUVs and SUVs made up a huge portion of new vehicle sales last year, 58% in the U.S. So, of course, every tire dealer out there is going to want to position themselves as an expert in this particular segment. How do they stand out from from their other competition in the area who is trying to do the same thing?
Well, I think that a big way that they do that is in qualifying that customer and identifying those who are going to be well served, selecting a different type of tire than a standard everyday replacement tire. And then after you've done that, that consumer can become a great advocate for your dealership of, I went to go get new tires. This guy helped match me up with a tire that lets me, expand or more greatly enjoy, my vehicle and whatever my other interests are. And then that dealer needs to be able to go out and publicize that primarily across their own social media where, hey, we had this Toyota RAV4 and we put them into an all-terrain tire, and here you've got a happy customer. And invite the customer to do the same thing, whether that's with reviews or that customer, making their own social media posts. That's where I think you can get some of that quick return on that expertise and position yourself as the go-to for those types of upgrade type sales.
For sure. Yeah, tire dealers who are taking advantage of social media, it's such a powerful tool. Couldn't agree more there.
Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Now, I want to talk about upsell opportunities in this segment. Of course, we're all looking for upsell opportunities. What are the big ones when it comes to SUVs and CUVs?
Well, I think the big dollars, skew toward that off-road type of a category. Mm-hmm. And so I say that because not only is the tire more expensive than your typical all-season replacement tire, but a lot of times there's additional products that get sold along with it. So that could be a different set of wheels. So if they're doing a true plus application, going from that OE 17, 18 inch up to a 20 inch, you have an opportunity to sell them another set of wheels. And there's also suspension components that might come along with it. Even on a small crossover, there's lift kits available with simple spring changes, where you can then accommodate a larger tire on that vehicle. And again, for somebody who's doing that occasional off-roading, that's something that they could be open to, and it creates a lot of additional upsell opportunities.
Absolutely. What about when it comes to SUVs and CUVs that are also EVs? They're, they're the Rivian or a Tesla that is considered an SUV. Are there any unique upsell opportunities in that category?
For sure. Again, that's a situation of educating that consumer about what it is that makes the tire for their vehicle distinctive, mm-hmm. and also in making sure that they understand that they don't have to buy an individually designated EV tire, mm-hmm. that as long as whatever options they're looking at, the tire matches the original equipment load and speed requirements, that really the whole tire world is open to them within those guidelines, the same as any other vehicle. So if they are a Rivian owner who wants a more aggressive off-road tire, or a Tesla owner, that has one of the dual motor performance models and wants a more performance-oriented tire, those options are there for them, even if it's not a quote-unquote EV designated tire. There's no reason that they can't run those other tires. Always being mindful to understand that going to a more off-road type tire is probably going to have a negative impact on range, the same way it would have on fuel mileage for an ICE vehicle. And then on the other side, you always have to worry about perceived cabin noise. So that's a spot where, a dealer having experience with particular tires, there are all-terrain tires that are quieter than others. There's UHP tires that are louder than others. So just understanding what some of those things are, and in the Atturo catalog, we look on EVs, as long as the load and speed is matched, any of our tires can be compatible with them. Our Trailblade ATS is a very quiet all-terrain tire, relatively speaking. And on the other side, our UHP, the AZ850, has been tremendously popular with particularly Tesla owners looking for a more performance-oriented tire, and it still delivers a very quiet ride. So, there are options out there for those owners. And again, it's up to the dealer to understand what the owner's looking for and just address those issues up front.
And I think that's such a strong point that you just made. And, it goes back to what you said earlier, where, there's a lot of confusion out there as far as EV owners, and they're not sure, do they need an EV specific tire? And no, not necessarily. It's, whatever they personally are looking for in the performance of that vehicle. Maybe they want to make sure that they've got a quiet ride or that they're enhancing their range. Okay, well then maybe these qualities are going to work for you, where, hey, if I want to go off-roading with my EV, I might want a different type of tire there. So you're totally right. It just, you've got to be able to read that consumer, read that driver, and make sure that they're getting what's going to make them happiest at the end of the day. Michael, when it comes to overall trends in this segment, what are you seeing as far as performance, as far as price? Are there certain trends that you're seeing that you expect to see toward the end of 2025? What are consumers generally looking for here?
Well, I think that the SUV, the true SUV category, the larger vehicles, have a very well established aftermarket. Especially in the context of, whether doing a lift or a lowering kit on it and adding, that aftermarket wheel and tire to complement it. I'm seeing more of that trend in the small, mid-size crossovers of owners customizing those vehicles in the same way. Now, in the case of lifts, they're not as extreme as a true full-size SUV, but they're out there. And then on the performance side, the same thing. There's people who are lowering those and really trying to enhance the performance of it. They like the utility, the style, those kinds of qualities. But vehicle manufacturers are building these OE vehicles, with some reasonably good performance in a crossover body style. And so I think you're seeing more owners that are embracing that and taking that in a performance direction as well. So as you've broadened the number of people who own these vehicles, and they are the dominant vehicle on the road in the American fleet, that's really leading to more of those opportunities for enhancement, especially as people are keeping their vehicles longer as well.
That makes a ton of sense, and it is fun to see these CUVs out there that are, people are interested in customizing them. I think you're right. We haven't seen so much of that in the past. I mean, it's certainly always been there. But the trend seems to be growing here, so it's certainly a lot of fun, and of course, tires are a big part of that customization process. Michael, thank you so much. This has been a very eye-opening and super interesting topic, so really appreciate your time.
I'm glad to have done it. Appreciate you including me and thinking of Atturo.
Of course. Take care. All right, great stuff from Michael there. Really, if there's one takeaway here, I think it's that you need to know your customer. Just like with every other segment under the sun, you need to know your customer and what they're looking for in their vehicle, especially with CUVs and SUVs. There are so many different types of drivers looking for so many different styles of performance, and the tires are going to make a huge difference there. So thank you for watching. Take care.